Good evening, Guelph. My name is Mark Peralvis, and that rhymes with for all of us. And I'm the Guelph candidate for the People's Party of Canada. Tonight we're going to talk about abortion because that's a hot topic issue, and a lot of people have been talking about it lately. The Liberals have been trying to say that Mr. Scheer is trying to take away women's reproductive rights and saying that abortion laws would take away women's reproductive rights, etc., etc., etc. And I wanted to address that because that's an important policy plank. Where does the People's Party stand on that? And Mr. Bernier lays out what the People's Party's stance on it is, and we're going to contrast that. We're going to look at that against Andrew Scheer's stance. Spoiler alert, Mr. Bernier says that if there's a vote in the House of Commons in Parliament that an MP brings to the House and to the table, then he would let his MPs have a free vote on it. And I think that that is important. That means it's not a whipped vote. That means that the leader's not telling you how to vote. You can vote your conscience. If I was a pro-life person or a pro-choice person, I would be free in that vote. Whoever brought up the piece of legislation, I would be free to vote my conscience, which I appreciate Mr. Bernier's stance on that. To me, that's a conservative stance on that. That's a free speech stance on that. So I'll let Mr. Bernier speak, and I'll stop him at the end. It's about a minute and a half, and then we'll compare with Mr. Scheer's stance on the same issue. I personally like Mr. Bernier's, but I'm a candidate for him, so that makes sense. Here's Mr. Bernier.
He also today, interestingly, refused to rule out voting for a law that would restrict a woman's right to an abortion. Why keep the door open to restricting access to abortion?
You know, what I'm saying, it's very important. Women has the right for an abortion in this country, and I think it will stay like that. But we have people in our country that want to limit that right, maybe at the last trimester, and they have the right to table a private bill on that. But us as a party, we won't have a position on that. If a member of parliament table a bill on abortion, we'll have a debate in this country. That's the place to have a debate in parliaments. But the most important, it would be a free vote for everybody. And I don't believe that anybody will table a bill against women to have an abortion in the beginning of their pregnancy. Mm-hmm. I don't believe in that. So, but that can happen. I'm very honest with Canadians. You know, we have people who are believing in pro-choice and pro-life in this country, and that's the same in our party. But nobody in Canada wants to restrain totally the right of women to have an abortion. You know, it won't happen in this country.
The philosophy behind that, though, is kind of interesting. If we could talk about that for a second. You say you'd never have an official position on abortion, and that your party members would be free to vote as they please. Sort of a party philosophy there. But how do you promote a party to the public that has no concrete positions on key social issues?
But, you know, the party, it's not something that it's important for us. It's not something that it's important for a freer and a more prosperous country. It's why it is not part of our platform. But I'm honest with Canadians. Maybe that can happen tomorrow in the House. That can happen next week in the House. A member of Parliament can table a bill on that. And that's their right. But we'll have a free vote. We can have a free vote on abortion tomorrow. That can happen. And that can happen also in the next Parliament. That's only what I'm saying to Canadians.
Polls show right now.
So I'll stop him there. So I think that's a stark contrast. I think I'm just going to highlight a couple of things. He said there are people who want to restrict access to abortions from the last trimester, right? So late-term abortion, they want to create a law around that. And Mr. Bernier was not giving weight to that one way or the other. He wasn't saying he agreed with that or not. He was just stating facts, and then said we could have a vote on that in the House tomorrow. And he said, importantly, a People's Party would not be a whipped vote. It would have a free vote. And I think that is such an important thing. And he says, I don't believe anyone will table a bill to restrict abortions at the beginning of women's pregnancies. And so, I mean, that's a pretty comprehensive look at a People's Party stance on abortion. They're going to be hands off because it has nothing to do with the prosperity of the nation. Here's Mr. Scheer and what he thinks.
I've made it very, very clear. Canadians can have absolute confidence that a Conservative government after the election in October will not reopen this issue.
So if the Conservatives are in power and they have a majority, then the Conservatives can use Mr. Scheer can whip his caucus, all the MPs, to vote down any tabled legislation, so it never goes anywhere. And so that's his assurance. And again, I think a free vote is a free vote, and I think that that's an important aspect to our democracy. I think that you, Guelph, elect a certain person, a single person, to represent you. And if a majority of Guelph wants a piece of legislation brought forward, then it's your representative's job to bring it forward, right? And that's how democracy works. That's just how democracy works. And there are tough conversations to be had, as I've said. This is one of them. So Mr. Bernier's talked about the abortion issue, and he's a firm believer in it probably not coming up to vote. He said, but it could. I'm trying to be honest with Canadians in the fact that it could come up to vote. Sorry, I was trying to queue up the next slide sneakily, but it started playing by itself. So I want to just highlight this last little bit. Mr. Bernier is talking, and it's kind of a wrap up of the interview as well. But this is the stuff that he's talking about using the power of the Constitution to effect. If he wanted, if abortion was something that was very high on Mr. Bernier's list, and let me be clear, it may be high on some of his MPs' lists. I don't have my mind made up. I'm very neutral on the subject at this point in time, politically. But overall, I'm not speaking for the whole People's Party because, as Mr. Bernier said, anybody in an MP in the House can table legislation. And so that could happen. A vote on that could happen. The debate should happen, and the House of Commons is the place for that debate to happen. These conversations need to be had. And so I'll let Mr. Bernier finish this video out with his kind of wrap up about how he would use the powers of the Prime Minister's office to make Canada richer, enable the provinces to be richer, enable us to develop our own wealth. Okay, Mr. Bernier, take it away.
We're the only party to want to be sure to create pipelines in this country and use the Constitution if necessary to be sure to be able to build pipelines. We're the only party who wants to have a discussion on immigration with having fewer immigrants. And so let's have this discussion. I think it is important. All the other traditional parties, they don't want to discuss about it. So there's nothing taboo with us. We must discuss what is necessary for the future of this country, for a more freer and prosperous country. And I think people appreciate the authenticity of our campaign.
All right, getting set for the race.
And that's it. I'm trying to be authentic as I can be. If I can represent you, I'll bring forward the things that are concerning you, and I'll do it as honestly as I can. Thanks for watching, everybody. My name is Mark Peralvis. I'm the people's candidate for Guelph, and that rhymes with for all of us. Oh, I forgot. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful night. Check out PPC Guelph and maybe make a donation. I can't do this by myself. I need help, and currently I need to be able to afford my campaign office. So send me a donation. Check out ppcguelph.com or .ca. Check out markperalvis.com and have a wonderful, wonderful evening.